My name's Mary, and I'm 22. I live with my parents and my younger sister, Sophia, who's 15. Lately, Mom and Dad have been working long hours at a local factory just trying to make ends meet. It wasn't always this way. There was a time when things were different. My parents owned a successful business, and we lived in a beautiful 2-story home with a wraparound porch where I'd sit and dream about the future. I can still remember the scent of Mom's roses in the garden and the sound of Dad's laughter filling the living room during family game nights. Everything began to change when I was 17. The business started struggling, and before we knew it, everything started falling apart. One bad month followed another, and soon we were buried in debt. The first blow was losing our house. I remember seeing Sophia skip down the driveway the day we moved out, unaware of what was going on. She was just 10, too young to grasp why we suddenly had to live in a cramped rental apartment instead of our beautiful home. I started working part-time at Joe's Cafe after school, serving coffee and sandwiches to the same people who used to come to our dinner parties. It felt surreal, but we needed every penny. Mom and Dad both got factory jobs, but even with all their hard work, it barely covered the bills. While I learned to live on instant noodles and secondhand clothes, Sophia seemed oblivious to our situation. She would come home with requests for new phones, designer clothes, and extravagant birthday parties, and somehow, Mom and Dad always gave in. She's too young to understand, they'd say. We don't want her to feel different from her friends. But can we afford this? I'd ask, watching them max out yet another credit card. Don't worry about it, Mary, Mom would say, smoothing Sophia's hair. She just needs time to adjust. But how could Sophia adjust when she didn't even know what was going on? While I pinched pennies, she acted as though nothing had changed. When I got a scholarship to college, it felt like winning the lottery. I still remember the day the acceptance letter came. Mom and Dad hugged me, and even Sophia looked impressed, though she quickly returned to her new iPad. "You've always been the smart one," Dad said, his eyes shining with pride. It was one of the few moments when I felt like the center of attention, not Sophia. College was tough but rewarding. While my classmates complained about student loans, I was grateful for the scholarship that made my education possible. I majored in business administration, hoping one day I could help my parents rebuild what they'd lost. By graduation, I already had a job lined up at Thompson & Associates, a well-known firm in our town. The pay wasn't fantastic, but it was enough to make a difference for my family. I chose to stay at home, not just to save money, but because I knew my parents needed help with their growing debts. But things were never that simple. While I gave up shopping and dining out to help cover family expenses, Sophia's lifestyle only became more extravagant. One evening, I came home exhausted from work, my stomach growling. I hadn't had lunch, trying to finish a project before the deadline. When I opened the fridge, I found only a half-empty carton of milk and some condiments. "Mom, what's for dinner?" I called out, already dreading the answer. "We're a bit short this week," she replied from the living room. "Maybe we could order pizza." Just then, Sophia came skipping down the stairs in a brand new designer jacket with a price tag still attached. $300. $300? I asked, my voice tight with frustration. That could have fed us for 2 weeks. "Where did that jacket come from?" I demanded. "Of this," Sophia twirled, unaware of the problem. "Melissa and Ashley have one. Mom said I could get one too." "Mom." I turned to her. "We have no food, but Sophia needs a new jacket." "Mary, please," Mom sighed, her tone patronizing. "Sophia has to keep up with the other kids at school. You know how teenagers are." "Yeah, Mary," Sophia added, rolling her eyes. "You don't get it. All my friends have the newest stuff. It's so embarrassing when they show up with new phones and clothes. And I don't have them." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her about real embarrassment, like wearing the same outfit to work over and over because I spent all my money on paying off family debts. But instead, I stood there, watching Sophia admire herself in the mirror while my stomach growled. "We need to talk about priorities," I said again, addressing my parents. "We can't keep living like this." "Sophia needs to understand," I started. "Sophia needs to fit in with her friends." Dad interrupted, not even glancing up from his newspaper. "You know how cruel kids can be at her school, especially with all those rich girls and their fancy things." I gave up. How could I compete with Sophia's tears and my parents' constant excuses? While I carefully tracked every penny I spent, Sophia's friends kept raising the bar with their expensive gadgets and designer clothes, and my parents kept trying to keep up, even if it meant going hungry. It started with $11,000. I kept it hidden behind my driver's license, my emergency fund that I'd been building up slowly. One morning, I opened my wallet to add another $50 for my paycheck, but the money was gone. I trembled as I checked each compartment, but it was gone. I already knew. I'd seen Sophia eyeing my wallet the day before when I left it on the kitchen counter. Sophia, I stormed into her room. Did you take money from my wallet? She looked up, wide-eyed. What? No, how could you think that? $1,000 is missing, and you're the only one. I can't believe you. She burst into tears, mascara running down her face. How dare you accuse me of stealing? I'm your sister. Mom rushed in. What's going on? Mary thinks I took money from her. Sophia sobbed, throwing herself into Mom's arms. She hates me. She's always hated me because you love me more, Mary. Mom gave me that disappointed look I knew too well. How could you accuse your sister like that? I stood there, watching Sophia's dramatic display, and for a moment, I almost questioned myself. Maybe I misplaced the money. Maybe I spent it and forgot. Maybe someone at work took it. After that, I switched to using my card exclusively. No more cash, no more questions about missing money. Problem solved, or so I thought. Then came the dress. I was doing laundry when Sophia walked in wearing what looked like a Valentino, probably more than our rent. Where did that come from? I asked, my arms full of damp clothes. Oh, this old thing. Sophia twirled, the fabric swirling around her legs. I've had it forever. Mom? Dad? I called out, did you buy Sophia another expensive dress? My parents exchanged confused glances. Dad frowned, his voice hesitant. No, we didn't buy any dress. The alarm bells in my head blared loudly. Where was a 15-year-old getting designer clothes from? Was she stealing? Had she joined a bad crowd? Or worse, was she involved in something illegal? That evening, I sat at my desk, my mind racing with dark possibilities. Every thought seemed to spiral into something worse than the last. Then it hit me, my credit card. My hands shook as I logged into my banking account, pulling up the statement from last month. 2 days later, the statement arrived, and the sight of 3 purchases chilled me. $895 at Nordstrom, $750 at Saks Fifth Avenue, $1,200 at Neiman Marcus. Each entry listed specific items: a size 4 cocktail dress, a medium blouse, size 6 shoes. Sophia's sizes, her preferred brands. My stomach churned. $3,000. My sister hadn't just borrowed my card. She'd been using it to buy clothes. Clothes I hadn't known about. She'd spent my money without asking, right under my nose. I found Sophia in her room, trying on one of her new outfits. My new outfits, I realized, since I paid for them. Nice dress, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Neiman Marcus, right? About $1,200. She froze mid-spin, but only for a second. What are you talking about? Stop pretending, Sophia, I said, holding up the credit card statement. 3 shopping sprees, $3,000, all in your size, all your favorite stores. You're crazy, she shot back, though her voice wavered. I didn't use your card. Really? Want to call the stores and check? I'm sure their cameras have footage of you shopping with my card. For a brief moment, Sophia's face went pale, but she quickly regained her composure. Whatever, you can't prove anything. I called out to our parents. Mom, Dad. Family meeting now. They walked in, Mom still holding a dish towel, Dad still in his work clothes. I slapped the bank statement on the coffee table. Look at this, I said, pointing to the charges. Sophia's been using my credit card, $3,000 worth of clothes. Mary, that's a serious claim. Dad frowned, adjusting his glasses. Are you sure you're not mistaken? Forget spending $3,000 on clothes that are exactly Sophia's size. I snapped. Really, Dad? Mom took the statement, squinting at the list. Well, even if, and I'm not saying she did it, but even if Sophia did use your card, she's going through a tough phase. I couldn't believe my ears. Are you serious? Teenagers make mistakes, Mom continued, patting Sophia's hand. It's part of growing up. Remember when you were her age? When I was her age, I wasn't stealing thousands of dollars from my family. I exploded. Don't be so dramatic, Mary, Mom sighed. If it really was Sophia, and we're not saying it was, but if it was, why don't we just consider it an early birthday present? An early birthday present she stole from me, committed fraud, and Mom was trying to downplay it. I stared at her in shock. Sophia is just going through a transition, Mom went on. Her friends all have nice things, and she's trying to fit in. You should be more understanding. Understanding. I felt like I was losing it. She stole $3,000 from me. Dad spoke up for the first time. Your mother's right. You're making too big a deal out of this. Let it go. Sophia sat there, a small smirk tugging at her lips. She knew she had won. She always won. You don't understand what you're doing. I yelled, my voice breaking with frustration. If Sophia is stealing from family now, what's next? She could end up in serious trouble. There it is. Dad shook his head. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of your sister. I let out a bitter laugh. Jealous of what? Of being a thief, of being spoiled rotten. See, Mom pointed at me. This is exactly what jealousy looks like. You can't stand that we give Sophia nice things. That night, I couldn't stand being in that house any longer. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. Every glance from my family felt like a betrayal. I grabbed my keys and drove aimlessly, eventually ending up outside Jenny's apartment. She had been my closest friend for years, and right then, I needed someone who could see things clearly. Jenny's apartment always felt like a sanctuary. She listened without judgment as I poured out everything: the stolen money, the fraud, my parents' ridiculous response. The wine she poured helped numb my anger, but the sting of my family's betrayal lingered. This is insane, she said after I finished. Your sister needs a wake-up call before she really messes up. I've tried everything, I sighed. They keep making excuses for her. Jenny thought for a moment, swirling her wine. You know, my Uncle Mike's a cop. He could help. I looked up, surprised. What do you mean? He could visit your sister, give her a scare, make her understand this isn't a game. He's done it before with other families. Sometimes kids need to see the consequences. The plan took shape over the next 2 days. It had to seem real. Sophia needed to believe that there would be actual consequences for what she'd done. We carefully timed everything, planning it for dinner when the whole family would be together. That evening, we sat around the table as usual. Mom's lasagna filled the house with a comforting aroma, but I couldn't bring myself to eat, knowing what was about to unfold. Sophia, as always, dominated the conversation, unaware that her world was about to change. I'll get it, Sophia said, jumping up when the doorbell rang, probably expecting one of her friends. The sight of Officer Thompson on our porch, crisp in his uniform, his badge gleaming in the porch light, had an immediate impact. Sophia's face drained of color. She stumbled backward, almost tripping over her own feet. What's going on? Mom rushed to the door, Dad close behind her. I called them, I said, standing and keeping my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. Someone stole $3,000 from my credit card. I want to know who did it. Officer Thompson stood in our living room, his presence making everything feel more real. Sophia collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. Our parents hovered, unsure of what was happening. Miss Sophia, Officer Thompson began, his voice firm yet calm. We have strong evidence of credit card fraud from this address. Transaction records, security footage, and witness statements all point to you. Sophia's sobs grew louder, but he continued undisturbed. I've seen cases like this before, kids from good families who thought they could get away with stealing. Do you know where most of them ended up? He paused and Sophia shook her head, mascara streaking her cheeks. I remember this girl around your age. She started out stealing from her family, thought it was no big deal. Last month, I had to arrest her for grand larceny. She's now facing serious jail time. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. Is this what you want for yourself, Sophia? Mom tried to step in, but Officer Thompson raised his hand. Ma'am, your daughter needs to comprehend the seriousness of what she's done. Credit card fraud is a criminal offense. We could settle this privately if the money is returned and this behavior stops. But if it continues, his silence spoke volumes. I stood quietly by the door, watching my sister buckle under the weight of real consequences. After Officer Thompson left, I hoped my parents would finally understand the situation. Maybe they'd see why I'd been so concerned about Sophia. I couldn't have been more wrong. The moment the door clicked shut, Mom turned with a look of fury, her face twisted in anger. "How dare you?" she yelled, venom in her voice. "How could you bring the police into this house?" I stepped back, shocked by her words. Mom never used that kind of language. "She's just 15, she screamed. "She's still a child, and you involved the police? What kind of monster does that?" "I was trying to help her," I stammered. "You weren't helping anyone," Mom snapped. "You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of Sophia. You're selfish, ungrateful, just trash." Dad, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. His voice was cold, firm. "Get out. Leave this house. You're no daughter of mine. No daughter of mine would do this to her sister." I looked at them, Mom's face contorted with rage, Dad's frigid, dismissive gaze, Sophia's half-hidden smirk, and I felt an eerie calm settle over me. The next morning, I packed my things. It's strange how easily 17 years of memories can fit into boxes and bags. Each item carried its own meaning. My high school graduation picture, the coffee mug I'd used every day, the blanket Mom gave me one Christmas. I left that blanket behind. Sophia stood in her doorway, watching me as I loaded my things into my car. She didn't offer to help. I didn't ask. Mom and Dad had already left for work, not a word spoken, and the house felt suffocatingly silent. Finding an apartment wasn't hard. My job at Thompson & Associates paid enough for a small one-bedroom place across town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No stolen cards, no family drama, no guilt trips, just peace. In the first month, I started building a new life. I bought secondhand furniture, found the best grocery store, and got to know which neighbors greeted me with a smile. It wasn't perfect, but it was calm. Then, one Tuesday evening, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Mary," her voice softer than usual. "Your father and I have been talking. We forgive you for what happened." I almost laughed. "Forgive me?" "We want you to come back," she continued, "and we need your help with the loan payment this month. Things have been tight since you left." The guilt crept in, but this time, I shut it down. "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to treat me like trash, throw me out, and then ask for my money. I'm done." "Mary, please," she begged. I hung up and blocked her number, then blocked Dad's and Sophia's. It was both painful and liberating. Next came the emails, urgent reminders about overdue payments and their financial troubles. I blocked those too. Then came messages from family friends, distant relatives, everyone they could rally to their side. Every message pleaded for family duty and forgiveness, all asking for money. I blocked them all. One Wednesday morning, I saw them at my office. I noticed them from the third-floor window, arguing with security in the lobby. I'd already instructed the guards not to let them up. Dad looked older, his shoulders weighed down by their financial issues. Mom was crying, making a scene. Classic Mom. I turned away from the window and returned to my desk. There were contracts to review, meetings to attend, a life to live. A life that was finally mine. 6 months had passed since I last spoke to my family. My apartment had truly become my home, filled with plants, books, and the peace I never knew I needed. Sometimes, while curled up on my secondhand couch, sipping tea and watching the sunset, I wonder how they're doing. Jenny keeps me updated, even though I never asked her to. She still lives nearby and runs into my family every so often. Last week, she told me that Dad had taken a second job at a local hardware store, working nights and weekends. The image of him, already worn from years at the factory, now stocking shelves at night hits me hard. He's working himself into the ground because they can't manage without my financial help. Apparently, the bank is working with them to restructure their loans. Mom has been visiting the bank in tears, trying to play the same sympathy card she used on me. But banks don't care about tears, they care about money, and my parents are running out of options. Their lifestyle has changed drastically since I left. No more shopping sprees for Sophia. No more expensive gadgets or designer clothes. Jenny mentioned seeing Sophia wear the same outfit twice in 1 week, something that would have been unthinkable just 6 months ago. Part of me hopes this is teaching her the lesson my parents never did, but I'm not hopeful. Late at night, when everything is quiet, guilt sometimes slips in. I think about Dad, his worn hands now working at a hardware store instead of resting. I think about Mom, still my mother despite everything. And I think about Sophia, still more child than adult, shaped by years of enabling. But then I remember the night they kicked me out. I remember being called trash, being disowned, and watching Sophia smirk behind her false tears. I remember years of giving everything I had, only to be treated like an ATM. The guilt fades, replaced by a quiet resolve to protect the peace I've finally found. Friends tell me I should try to reconcile. That family is family no matter what. They don't understand that reconciliation requires both sides to own their mistakes. My parents still think they did nothing wrong. They just want their human ATM back. Sophia probably hasn't thought of me since the money stopped coming. Maybe one day things will change. Maybe Dad will see that his blind protection of Sophia caused more harm than good. Maybe Mom will realize that love isn't measured by designer clothes and credit card bills. Maybe Sophia will grow up and understand what she lost when she betrayed my trust. Maybe they'll miss me for who I am, not just for my paycheck. Until then, I'm building my own life. I got a promotion last month. I'm thinking about buying a place of my own instead of renting. I'm discovering who I am without the weight of family obligations. I'm learning that it's possible to miss someone and still know I'm better off without them. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay stunned.